Hello everybody and welcome back to DTDcember, a series in which I'll be counting down my top 12 GTA villains of all time. If you want more info on this whole thing, feel free to check out my first video in this series where I explain the rules of my list. Or if you haven't seen my previous DTDcember videos and want to avoid spoilers, check out this playlist to watch every prior entry up to this point. Today, I'll be talking about my number 7 entry into this list, Devin Weston from Grand Theft Auto 5. We're first introduced to Weston in the infamous mission By the Book, as a rich, cashmere sweater-wearing friend of Steve Haynes, who has already been presented as quite the scumbag by this point. So by immediately associating him with a character like this, we're given the impression that Weston must have some similar traits to him. Thus Trevor, one of our protagonists, treats him as such. In our next encounter with him, one of our other protagonists, Michael, shows him a similar lack of respect until the billionaire offers to use his connections to grant him anything he desires, which ends up being a meeting with the legendary movie producer Solomon Richards, in exchange for our protagonist's work in acquiring several high-end cars for him. With this offer on the table, Michael's opinion on him completely switches up as he even tries to convince Franklin that working for him could be a promising opportunity. Despite Michael's newly found positive views on him, Weston continually speaks condescendingly to our protagonistic trio, being sure to mock them for how poor they are compared to him. Our main chain of missions involving Weston revolves around those expensive cars he has our protagonists boost for him, and while there's a clear tension between him and Trevor, he's able to maintain a positive relationship with Michael thanks to their deal regarding Solomon Richards. And even though Franklin clearly dislikes him, Weston starts to show the youngest criminal a level of respect the more they interact, and goes as far as to advise him against letting Trevor and Michael hold him back. Eventually, the minor arc surrounding the expensive cars reaches its resolution when we successfully transport them. However, remaining true to his dickhead form, he withholds the protagonist's payment upon completion of the deal, having his assistant spout some corporate bullshit to try and trick Franklin into thinking that they have our best interests in mind. When Michael hears about this, he buys into the bullshit and sides with Weston since the two still have their deal regarding Solomon Richards. Or at least, that is until Weston pulls out of that deal by trying to pull the plug on the movie Solomon had been working on. Now that our protagonists have served their purpose by getting him the cars, Weston's interests in keeping Michael happy have waned, so he moves forward with his plan to shut down the movie studio to cash in on an insurance policy, and this involves destroying the movie that Michael had been credited as an executive producer on. Of course, we don't take this lying down and we recover the movie, which leads to the death of Weston's assistant. At this point, the gloves are finally off, and Weston officially becomes one of the story's villains as he uses his authority as a major shareholder in Merryweather Security to try and have Michael's family killed in retaliation. When this attempt is thwarted, Weston goes to our only protagonist he somewhat respects and orders him to either kill Michael or face the consequences. For the sake of simplicity, I'm mostly going to ignore GTA 5's A and B endings and only consider ending C, since that's the canon ending. So with that in mind, let's talk about what happens next. Following the heist of the Union Depository's gold surplus, Lester leaks that the crew are melting it down at a foundry, prompting Weston to send Merryweather to take the bullion for himself. Noose also arrives on Steve Haynes' behalf, but that's not relevant right now. Then, once our opposition is dealt with, our protagonists move on to eliminate several major enemies they've made throughout the story, the final of which being Devin Weston himself. After powering through his security team, Trevor eventually captures Weston, transports him out to a cliff, and then our three unified protagonists put an end to the billionaire who'd ripped them off and threatened their lives. Even though Weston isn't introduced until we're a good portion into the story, GTA 5 is a long enough game to where his lack of involvement at the very start of it doesn't really detriment his effectiveness as a villain, because he's still given so much time after his first appearance to make an impact. He also has an interesting trajectory as a character given his roller coaster-like relationship he has with our main cast, despite remaining such a static character. When we first get involved with Weston, he just poses as a typical asshole with deep pockets who will have to work for. But while Trevor and Michael see right through him, Michael is fooled into believing his lies because of the promise he's already fulfilled by hooking us up with one of Michael's idols. Simultaneously, while Weston has no interest in winning over Trevor, probably because he knows he can't, he tries to get into Franklin's head by convincing him that the other two protagonists are going to hold him back from reaching his full potential. Weston certainly sees use in Franklin greater than just boosting some high-end cars for himself, so he tries to show him enough respect to gain his loyalty, and in the universe where Franklin kills Michael, it apparently works to some degree. But unfortunately for Weston, in this reality, Franklin sticks to his guns, and after Weston shows Michael his true colors, all three of our protagonists ultimately put this villain to rest. While Devin Weston himself may be a physically weak antagonist considering how easily he goes down once his forces are dealt with, his position of power renders him a force to be reckoned with, and so far, he's the only villain I've talked about who actually gets the chance to win, depending on the player's choice. Still though, as powerful as Weston proves to be in the story of Grand Theft Auto 5, he'll only earn the number 7 spot on the list of greatest GTA villains of all time, if nothing else because there's simply 6 characters who fulfilled the villainous role better than he could. But what do you guys think? Do you believe Weston deserves the ranking I gave him, or do you think he should be placed higher or lower? Tell me in the comments section, and if you're enjoying this series so far, feel free to leave a like on this video, and subscribe if you haven't done so already so that you'll be notified this Sunday when I return with the number 6 entry for this list. Have a blessed couple of days until then, and I'll see you all soon. This is your boy Doug the Dog 6, and and I am signing off.
The Christmas tree's on fire.